All right, let's get started. Thank you all for joining us today for this webinar about working with images in Origin. My name is Ishwar Iyer. We have had some reports about audio issues in the past webinars with WebEx. You may need to go to audio broadcast and hit play to hear the audio. If you still have issues, please put in the chat window and somebody will help you. During the webinar, you can type your specific questions in the Q&A window. You can also use the chat window for any general comments such as audio issues or anything else. This question gets asked a lot. We will share this project and related data files, in this case, images, and the recording. So you should get an email early next week with a link. If by chance you missed that email, you can always go to our website and under support, you can click on training webinars. Okay. And over here, you'll see a section for registering for upcoming webinars. We list only a couple of dates, which may be a little misleading, but if you click view all, you'll see we have a schedule all set up to end of August. So we are running webinars every Friday, 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. Eastern. Okay, so next week there is one on data processing, working with date time data, and then a couple of weeks out, working with graph layers, working with color lists and palettes, and so on. Okay, on this main page, there is a button for recorded webinars. You may want to browse that to see some past webinars that may be of interest to you. All the recordings are available, plus the project file is available to download. Okay, you can download the recording or play it on the website, on the web page itself. My goal today is to provide you with an overview of what you can do with images in Origin. We have had some comments that maybe we are going too fast and you cannot do the same operation in Origin while we are presenting. My recommendation would be don't try to follow the steps in Origin in parallel. We would rather that you watch, understand what's available, and ask questions. And we will share the project and the recording anyways. So you can replay the recording, pause, open the project, go to that particular folder, try the steps and so forth at your leisure. Also, as you know, we have many videos and tutorials on our website on specific features as well. So the idea here is to give you an overview. This is not like a step-by-step tutorial. All right, that said, I have a project here with an outline of what I'm going to cover today. Let's see how far we can get. I'm going to go slow. And again, at the end of the webinar, we'll have a poll. Please take a few moments to give us your feedback. Also suggestions on what topics you would like to see in the future. For example, any particular area in this overview, if we should drill down and do another webinar in detail with many samples, we would like to hear those kind of comments so we can add that to our calendar for upcoming webinars. Okay. So first, let's start with something very simple. Using images just to annotate graphs. Okay. So I have a graph here. My colleague James Chen shared this with me. It's from his PhD thesis. So this shows an IV curve for a single Cooper pair transistor. And I just want to annotate this graph by placing an image inside the layer, an SCM image of the transistor. So with a graph active, you can go to the insert menu and there are several options here. The last option here is insert images from files. So if I choose that option, I can navigate and select my file from anywhere on my computer. So this is the image that my colleague gave me. So I'm adding that and click OK, and the image comes in. Then you can resize it, position it where you want. So a simple way to annotate so that there is some relevance to the data, that this is the SEM image of the transistor and here is the IV curve, okay? One thing to note, if you place an image in a graph and then you go to export, file, export graphs, open dialog, you can export in many different formats, of course. If you choose a raster format such as PNG, everything will be pixelized, so there is no issue with size. It'll just use the pixel size that you specify. You can, as you know, in Origin, you can specify in pixels or inches, etc., for the export. But what if you choose something like EPS or PDF, which is vector format? I just wanted to point out that if you choose that, under PDF options, for instance, there is data compression, okay, for the images that may be embedded inside the graph. Just keep in mind that compression should be turned on. Otherwise, if you place a very large resolution image, you may end up with a file that is too large, okay? Again, feel free to type questions as we go along. Some of my colleagues from tech support have also joined. So we will try to answer the questions as we proceed. Okay. All right. The same sort of control exists for EPS as well. Okay. Let's move on to layouts. You may already know Origin has a layout window. So if I go to the standard toolbar here, there is a button for layout. If I choose that, I can place graphs, tables, and images, etc. in there. Let me just delete this image. And if I go in here, I can right click and I can add a graph. Then a browser comes up so that I can pick the graph that I want and click OK. And I can drag and place it. So this is somewhat like a PowerPoint slide. It's pre-formatting. You can place it and position it any way you want. In this layout as well, I can insert images from files. So you may want to keep the image separate from your graph. You may want to put it all together like a PowerPoint slide and then add a title, add whatever else, equations, tables, etc. to layout and then publish this. A layout can also be exported, okay? Just wanted to point out, if you select multiple objects, there are options here on the side. There is an object alignment toolbar. I can use that to align top, align bottom, align center, and such. So there are multiple options for that. Okay, you may want to check that out while you're preparing a layout page in Origin. Okay, so the layout serves as a canvas for putting together information to make a presentation. And feel free to ask questions. Somehow my QA question and answer window disappeared. I'm trying to find it. Okay, let me see over on this computer. Okay, all right. Now moving on with the same idea of annotation, Origin can also annotate a graph using maps. So here I have some data, which is latitude and longitude for cities in continental USA, many entries here. And I have temperature for different months, and I also have an annual average temperature. I have plotted the latitude versus longitude, and I have used the annual mean temperature as coloring. As you know, in Origin, you can, when you make a scatter plot, rather than assign a fixed color, you can map the symbol to color from another column, which is what I've done here. There are many tutorials for that. We have done past webinars on graphing and graph customization. You may want to check some of that out. So with this graph active, what I would like to do is place a US continental map behind the data. So for that, we have an app. Okay. As you may know, in recent versions, starting with version 2016, we have been adding free apps for Origin. Apps can be downloaded and installed. In recent versions, maybe last 2-3 versions, we have this nice Add Apps button, which you can click to open an App Center dialog, where you can go see what are the new and popular apps that other users have been downloading. You can also search. For example, I can go here and search by map to see what apps may exist that are available for maps. So there are many different ones here. Maybe I should have typed maps, but Google Map import is one of them. I have already installed it. There is also a shape files for those who work with shapefile data. You can bring in a shapefile and place that as a background in a graph as well. And we have blogs and tutorials on that. Okay. So I just wanted to show you the App Center. All the apps are free, but each one has its own minimum version requirement. So you will see here SVM classification requires 2020B because there were changes in Origin in 2020B that the app requires. Time frequency analysis 2017, Google Map import 2018, and so forth. Okay. So I have the Google Map app installed already. So with the graph active, I'm going to click on the icon here to bring up the dialog for the app. So here's the dialog. It opens up with the map of the world, but I only want the section that's relevant to my data. So for that, there is a button here. Okay, there are tutorials and documentation on all of this on the app page and blogs. So if I click this, Origin will change the settings so that it only captures the map area relevant to my data, my min and max in my latitude and longitude. Now I can choose, do I want a road map? Do I want a satellite image? Whatever I want, whether I want with road map, I can have labels and such. Okay, so let me just choose satellite image. And then I can import this image as a separate graph or import as update. I'll choose import as update. Okay, so now it's talking to the Google server, getting that particular slice of image and placing that in the background of my graph layer. Okay, this might take a bunch of seconds depending on the server, and we are using a free key to get this. You can purchase keys from Google as well. So once I do that, here's my map. Okay, so now I have some context to my data. So now I can go hover on a particular point and look at the details. This is Columbia, Missouri. What's the annual mean temperature? What's the latitude? What's the longitude and such? Okay, so that's a nice way to annotate map data with a map in the background. Okay. Any questions, comments, please feel free to communicate with us. My colleagues are monitoring as well, and I'll try to answer the questions as well. Okay. All right. Let's move on to worksheet cells. Okay. You can also place images in worksheet cells. So I have put a documentation link here. Sorry. Let me. If you Google Origin documentation about cell inserting information into cell, there are many formats. You can insert a graph, you can insert a file and such. So let me first show the syntax of inserting a file. So if I select this syntax and Control C, go paste that into a cell, Control V, it's going to go get the image that I mentioned, C:\temp scpt.png, and place that inside a cell. Then I can expand this column height and width and such, okay, to have a better view of the image. Also, you can select multiple cells in a worksheet and you can merge them. So there is a button somewhere, I forget which toolbar it was. Some of my toolbars are hidden. Okay, so here is the merge cells button. Okay, so if I click that, it will merge those groups of cells together, so I have more area to work with. So Some customers put graphs and images together to create sort of a composite presentation document using the worksheet as a canvas. So that's a possibility in Origin as well. And there are tutorials on this, examples on this. Some customers have gone into quite a bit of elaborate customization of the worksheets to create beautiful reports. Okay. Questions, comments? Okay. You can also get images from a particular web page. So for example, here I have a Wikipedia link and you can place that inside a cell. Okay. In this case, it's just a link, it's not a file. So what this will do is just showing you different options in a worksheet. So if I click it, it'll then open a web page to go to that particular image. So if you want to reference a particular image in your project document, you can add a reference to an outside image on a web page or your server or elsewhere. Okay. You can also import images from database. So this is a sample database that Microsoft provides. If you go look at our recordings, we recently did a webinar on connecting to database from Origin. So my colleague James Chen showed exactly this example. So I'm just showing you the data that has already been imported from the database. There are many columns, and one of the columns is an image column. So this happens to be in a manufacturer's list of products available, and this is just picture. It looks very grainy because that's a sample database from Microsoft, and the pictures are indeed grainy. So it's not Origin doing something funky with the images, just that these images are very small, low resolution. So you can place images in cells as well by bringing them in from a database. Okay. Another example for chemists out there, we have a Smiles app which lets you take smile strings and convert them to molecular structure diagrams. So I have already installed that app. By the way, I have a tab here called Images. When you work with the app bar here, all the apps that you have installed show up in the All tab. But you can right click and start your own tab, a new tab, call it whatever you want. Then in here, you can go to the All tab, click on a particular icon, right click and say, share the view, okay, to whichever tab you want to. I can share it with images, I can share it with my new tab and so on. Then it'll appear in that particular tab. I have already arranged a few choice items that I wanted to show in this images tab. Okay, let me just go here. I was going to use this one as well. Let me share that to my images tab. Okay, and one of the apps I installed is Smiles to Image. So let me first right click on it. Some of the apps that we ship come with sample files. So if you right click, there will be a show samples folder. So if I click that, it will open the folder, and in here it's shipped with the sample project. So let me just drag that project and drop it in here to add to my existing project. So you'll see here my colleague Chris Drozdowski, who's our resident chemist, he put together this example. So he took some data from PubChem. So here are the Smiles strings, okay, and he created a graph of using some of the columns here, okay. Okay, so now I would like to take these smile strings and convert them to images. That's what this app does. So if I click on this column, I can then click on the app. You see now the app is available. It requires a worksheet. So if I click on it, there are many options here. I'm not going to go into the details. There is a nice blog about this one. I'll just click OK to accept the defaults, and you will see now I have images. Okay. All right. So now the cool thing is once you have images and you have data from that worksheet plotted, you can then use the data reader tool in Origin, which is located in the tools toolbar. So if I click here, I can turn on the data reader, and then I can go place it on any of these bars. And now I can navigate and I can see the relevant information for each bar what's my name of the chemical structure and what does the structure look like, the picture, okay? This was pre-configured. There are tutorials on how to do this. If you right-click on the data info window, there is a preferences option which brings up a dialog where you can decide what columns to show. You can show information from a single cell. So my colleague had chosen to show the smiles cell, which is why when I change from one bar to another, I can see the images, okay? So this is probably very useful for you chemists out there. Please play with this app. This app requires you to just register, just log into the website and register, because we are using a third-party DLL and they require us to maintain a list of who is using the app. Okay. All right. Okay. The app is free. Okay. So last but not the least, in recent versions of Origin, we also introduced HTML and Markdown syntax in notes windows. You can right click, add a notes window, and then set it to Markdown or HTML syntax. I've already done that. I've taken some data, done a linear regression, and I've put together a report. If I double click, it opens the notes window and renders it as a Markdown report. Okay. How did I do this? I don't have time to show you the details of the Markdown syntax and how it is done. My colleague Chris Gristowski just did a webinar on it maybe like a week ago or 2 weeks ago. You can go look at the recording for that. Let me just show you the syntax. So this is Markdown. We also support HTML. So in Markdown, you can also insert HTML syntax. So I have just put a simple syntax here: image source equal to c::temp lvdt.png, some image that I broaden of a distance transducer. It's not really for this data, but just to show width equal to 200. So when I render it, right click, you can go render mode is Control M. So I can use Control M to switch between render mode and edit mode. Okay. Then there is Markdown syntax for taking variables from the page, such as what was the input file name, and putting them in there, which is in the page info area of Origin, the file date, then a graph, the fit line graph. There is specific syntax for putting a graph into a Markdown or HTML sheet, how to get the cell values from fit parameter sheets and such. So you can do all of that linking and create a nice report, and then you can print this as PDF, and there you have it for your lab report, nicely organized with the image of your sample and the tables and the graph with the fit results and everything. Okay, so this is quite a nifty feature we added a few versions ago. We would like feedback on this. If you haven't tried it, you're into HTML or Markdown, please try it. So that ends my section on annotation, how to just bring in images to annotate. Okay. All right, let's move on. Next thing I want to show is Digitizer. Okay, this is a popular tool that customers often ask for in the past. We introduced it many versions ago. So what this tool allows you is to take an image and grab data from it. So let me show some examples of it. First, I have a link here to a open source plus journal. Let me just click that to open the page. I just picked a random image from a journal yesterday as an example to show. So let me write, I want to digitize this image and get the data. Of course, in PLOS Journal, the data may be available too, but I'm just showing you, in case you have an image, how do you capture the data from it? So I right click and I do copy image. So that's on my clipboard now. Then I can come to Origin and I can go to the tools menu, and under the tools menu, there is a digitizer menu item. Let me click that to open, and that opens the digitizer. Again, this tool is quite complex. There are many options here. I'll show you some options today. You can look at tutorials and videos on this, and try with your data, and if you have difficulty, we would love to hear from you. So one of the buttons here is import from clipboard. So if I click that, Origin brings in that graph. Okay, let me collapse the Project Explorer panel so I have more room. Let me stretch this window to make it a little larger. So first thing, I need to define the scale. You'll see that Origin placed these vertical and horizontal lines. I can click on them and then I can position them to a desired location. So let me just put this at location 10. You can hold the A key to zoom in so that you can place it more precisely. Okay, and A key and mouse wheel. So let me click on the other line and let me put it at say 90. I'm not going to worry too much about precision here. I just wanted to show you the operation. Let me do the same thing with the vertical lines. Okay, I'm going to put it at 5 and 25. Then you need to tell Origin what did you pick from the image. Okay, so note that log scale is also supported. We also support ternary graphs and polar and such. So I have to go in and say my first axis value for X was 10. My second axis value that I chose for 90. For Y, it was 5 and was 25. Once I've done that, Origin can then map those scale values so that when I start picking data, it knows what's the value of the location of that data point. Okay. Now let's go ahead and digitize. So I can click this button to manually pick points. Okay. By the way, if you have a graph with error bars or a bar graph with error bars, we don't detect error bars. You will have to separately click and get the error bar data. So let me quickly show here. I'm just going to focus on the normal RATS data, which is the red data points. I'm going to again hold A key and zoom. While I'm holding A key, I can drag and position. So these are the points. Then I can position the cursor as best as I can in the middle of the data point, double click. There are ways to delete already collected points and redo as well. Okay, so I'm adding points by double clicking. Okay. Okay, once I'm done with that, I click done. Okay, and then if I go here, one of the buttons is look at the worksheet. So here's my worksheet with the data that I collected. So this was for normal rats. So let me put a comment there, normal rats. Okay, and then I'll go back to my digitizer window. By the way, if you click this button to kill the dialog, if I go back and look at the graph at 100% zoom, you'll see there's a button here to bring it back. So you can reopen, you can save your project and continue your work another day, for example. Okay, everything is saved. There is my worksheet. Okay, so now I want to trace another data set. So there is a button here to say start new line. So my first line was 7 points. Now it started a new line. Now I can go click again. I'm not going to bother too much about precision. I'm just showing you the techniques here. So let me just double click some of the blue points and pick them. I'll go down here so that I can get the full range of the data. Okay. Double click to add some points. So you get the idea. So let me get this last guy here done. And then now I can go to my worksheet and then I can annotate this by adding the comment saying this is from TLE rats. Okay, whatever that means, I don't know. Okay, then I can take this data that I have already digitized, hold control to select the other column, go to the plot menu and make a group scatter plot. Okay. So now you have your data in Origin, you can analyze it, you can graph it any which way you want. Questions? Okay, you're all very quiet today. I don't see anything in chat or Q&A. All right. Let me now show an example of digitizing a line graph. Okay. I'll just reload the project just to clean up a bit. Okay. And for the line plot, I'm going to choose a file from Origin's sample area. So I'm just going to fire up the digitizer again. There is a button here as well to open the digitizer. So I can go here and pick a particular sample. I go to Origin, go to the samples folder. Okay, and then I navigate to import and export. Sorry, maybe it was under, I don't know where it was. Maybe under import and export, but a different format. Okay, let me see, BMP. Okay. Yeah, 2 peaks. So let me bring that file in. So here it's a line graph. So how to digitize a line graph? Okay, I'm not going to set the scales. You know how to do that already. I'm just going to show you with lines, we have a few options for auto digitization. So if I go to digitize, I can choose auto trace line by points. And if the line is clean enough, if I go double click, it will try to follow the line. Sorry, did I choose the wrong one? Digitize. Let me choose done. Let me choose delete that. Yes. And digitize. There are multiple options here. Manually pick points, auto pick points by grid. So let me show that. If you choose auto pick points by grid, you can choose a grid to draw, and then you can go draw the grid and it will pick points wherever the grid meets that particular line. Okay, so this may be a very useful way of doing it. And the grid has option settings. So if I go to settings, I can go to digitize settings. I can change it to a Y grid. I can say make it more dense and click OK. Then I can go grab this whole peak area, draw something like this, and it will get all the points there. So you get the idea. Then I can save this and then start another trace and go to the red curve and so on. Okay. So there are tutorials for this again. You can look that up. Okay. Any questions, comments? Okay. Okay, sorry, it's hiding here. Okay. So now let me go to importing images. Okay. Questions, comments, please keep the comments and questions coming. Okay, let me see. Oh, there are some questions here. Sorry, I didn't scroll down enough to see. Okay, so my colleagues have been answering it. I apologize. Okay, I'm just reading quickly the questions. Okay, all right. I think they were all answered. Now let's go to importing images. So now we get into bringing an image and work with the image as data. Okay, so that's what I'm going to show for the rest of the webinar. So Origin has a metrics window, which is this other data container in Origin. The basic one is the worksheet, and then you have the metrics. So to bring in an image, you can, like I said, you can import an image into a cell of a worksheet, but when you work with images, ideally you should be working with the metrics book. Okay, so with the metrics book active, I can go to the data menu and I can choose, let's see, import from file, and there is image to metrics. So I can choose this to pick an image. Okay, so that I can go here to my desktop, to where my webinar files are, webinar, okay, my July 24th working with images webinar, and there are different file types. By default, I think it goes to bitmap. You can also choose show me everything that's an image. So then I can click, say, red blood cells and bring in that image. Click OK and bring it in. Okay, a dialog comes up. There are options for it. You can play with that. So there is my image. Okay, now I can also do this by dragging and dropping. Okay, so let me show that. I'm going to open Explorer and I'm going to go to the samples folder in Origin. So let me go to, you can quickly open samples folder from Origin itself. So if I go to help, I can go to open folder, and there are many options here. One of them is program folder. We are adding a samples folder entry to that menu in the next version. So I can go to samples here, and I can go to image processing, okay, and analysis. And then I have a bunch of images. Let me show you one by one. So if I have a image here. Let me just say, take this flower image, drag and drop into Origin. Origin will automatically import that as, make a new metrics book and import it in there. Okay. You can also drag and drop multiple files. So if I have an image, an empty matrix, and I go to my Explorer window, okay, and I have these TIFF files here with some cells, myocyte recording. So I can select all of them and simply drag and drop it into the matrix. Okay. In this case, what Origin did, let me explain. Similar to how a workbook can have multiple sheets and each sheet can have multiple columns, a matrix book can have multiple sheets as well. And within a sheet, you can have multiple objects, similar to how multiple columns in a sheet. So the default setting is it just brought all of it in as multiple objects in the same sheet. Then I can navigate here. If I right click on the top, you will see there's a show image thumbnails. You can turn it on, turn it off. Okay, in recent versions of Origin, in the last version, to be precise, we added some mini toolbars. We also added a slider. So if you bring in a stack of, say, 100 images, you can use this to slider to better navigate through the images, okay, to see your image stack. We are working on improving image stack and apps that would do profiling on image stacks and such in the upcoming version 2021 in October. I'm using the currently released version 2020B. So if you have image stack data and you're interested, we would like to hear from you. Just email us or put in the comments that you would like to beta test. We could give you a beta version, and maybe you can share some of your images and your stories with us so we can create appropriate apps. Okay. Let me see my notes here, things that I wanted to tell you. Okay. Now, if you have a matrix window and if you go to data, import from file, image to matrix again, and if I select multiple images in this case, let me navigate again to program files, OriginLab, Origin 2020B, samples, image processing and analysis. So if I select a bunch of files here, let me select 4 and add files, you can also control how it is brought in. Like I told you, by default, it starts as new objects, but I can say start new sheets. If I do that, then each image will come as a separate sheet in the book. So there are many different options for that. Okay. We also support importing MATLAB files. So let me quickly show that. If I go to my desktop, where I have my webinar folder, webinars, today's webinar, and here I have a file img 18 by 73. That's a MATLAB file with many images in it. If I just drag and drop, it'll automatically open that. It actually brought it into a workbook. So that's an option too, where the image is embedded in the workbook like I showed you. But if I want it in a matrix window, I can simply open an empty matrix window and drag the MATLAB file and drop it into the matrix window, and then it comes in. Okay. In this case, it's all data. I will explain to you in a moment what the difference between image and data means. Let me see if there are more questions or comments. Okay, I don't see any new questions. All right. So now let's look at some details about what do we mean by image versus data. So let me focus on this single image. It's a red blood cell image. Origin is showing on import the image in image view. But I can go to the view menu and you will see there is data mode and image mode. Okay? Data mode is Control-Shift-D. Image mode is Control-Shift-I. So I can use those shortcuts to toggle between image mode and data mode. Okay. Now, if I go to data mode, you will see each cell has 3 values because this is a color image. it's showing the R, G, and B values of the image that just came in. Okay. Now, with this image, you will see on the right side top of the matrix window, there is a little icon saying I, which means it's still in image mode. Okay. Then I can go to the menus in Origin to convert this either to grayscale or to data. Okay. Let me show that. So with my WebEx bar is blocking me. Okay, it disappeared. Okay, let's go to the image menu. Okay, you will see there are many options here. Okay, one of them is conversion. I'll come to the other things in a moment. So I can convert to data or convert to grayscale. So let me first convert to grayscale. So if I open the dialog, I have choices there. Do I want 2 power 8, 2 power 12, depending on your resolution of your image? I'm picking 2 power 12 and click OK. Okay. And then it converted that to grayscale, but still it's an image. If I do Control Shift D, now I only have single numbers, but these are grayscale numbers. Okay. If I go back to the image menu again, conversion, and convert to data and open dialog, I can convert truly to data, whether I want a short or a byte. Okay, once I do that, in this case, it decided to make a new matrix and have a recalculable operation. As you know, in Origin, you can have an input and an output with a related operation. So I can click on this and bring back my dialog to change something. In this case, I may want to change back to byte or different options. So here you see the number is slightly different because it did some normalization, but the information is the same. But you will notice that instead of an I, it shows a D here. Now, why would I want to do this? If I want to do an FFT, if I want to do, say, bring in a blob and do curve fitting to it, any math operations typically require data. And if you try to do that on a matrix which has image I, it may not work. Some may work if it's grayscale because it's only a single number. But if it's RGB, it will usually complain or auto convert for you. Okay, so just so you know the difference between what is I for image and D for data. Okay, I hope that's clear. Okay, all right. Some questions here. I see my colleague James Chen and my colleague Zheng Shao are helping answering the questions. Thank you, guys. Okay, now let me see if I mentioned everything I planned to. Okay, once you convert to data, then you can apply palettes to the image. Palette is basically a fake color. Okay, so I took my color image. Now I have my information converted to data. The palette button becomes available. Note that if it's image mode, it's not available because it's really showing the image color. Okay, so here I can go in here and I can choose a palette. So for example, maybe I want a topography palette, or maybe I want like a rainbow isolum palette. So you can apply different palettes to view the image in color already in the matrix window. This is not a graph. This is just a view of the data in the matrix window. Then let's move on to graphs. What can I do with plots? How can I plot the data and do things with it? Okay. So here again, I come back to the image that my colleague James shared with me, the SEM image of his transistor. So you note that in this image, there is an annotation here showing the scale of the image. So this bar length is 1 micrometer. So if I go to the matrix window and look at set dimensions and labels, you will see that Origin brought in the image. It was 424 pixels by 338 pixels. And Origin can set coordinates separate from the size. And it just set the coordinate to 0 to 423, 0 to 337, because Origin does not know what's the scale, right? It just used the pixel as the scale. But I can change it. If I know the dimension of the image, I can type it in here, right here. I can say from 0 to 10, from 0 to 20, and set my coordinates. But better yet, if you have a marking in the image, we just published an app just this morning. Okay, set image scale. While I was preparing for the webinar, I realized we don't have a good tool for this, a good way to set scale. So with this image active, or rather with this metrics active with image in it, I'm going to click this button to open the set image scale app. This is a nice app that my colleague Pen Lai put together very quickly for the webinar, really. Now it's public. So here I have a rectangle here. I can use either horizontal or vertical dimensions to set my size, my scale. Okay, I can resize it. I can use Control A to zoom and pan so that I can get more precise placement. In this case, I'm only concerned about X scale. I don't care what's the height of the box, so I can go size it to position the X scale exactly over that bar, which is 1 micrometer. Then I can go here and put my units of okay, and then I click here and say that's 1, okay. Obviously, this is X and Y is ISO scale, same scaling in both directions. So then I can just click OK, and the metrics has been scaled. So now if I go to metrics and look at the set dimensions and labels, you will see the image has a column width of 5.45 microns and 4.34 microns. Okay. Any questions on that? Now I'm going to take this and make plots. So first of all, let me get rid of this annotation area. Okay. So for that, we have a cropping tool. So when an image metrics with an image is active, there is a tool here. It shows as a green highlight. In the upcoming 2021 version, we'll have options of different shapes. You can draw a circle, a free line, polygon, etc. to crop. In the current version and older versions, we only have rectangle. So I can go here, drag a rectangle. Okay, then I can reposition it. I can position it as so that it gets everything in the image except that label area which I don't need anymore because I already captured the scale for the image. So then I can go size this. Okay, once it's positioned, I can right click and I can either crop or create new. Let me create new. So now I have a new window where I have the image cropped, and it will still have the same dimensions, okay, or rather the same scale. Of course, it trimmed it a bit, okay. All right, so now I can go here and I can make plots. When you have a matrix with image data in it, you can go to the plot menu. There are several options for you. One under contour, it just happens to be under contour, okay. So if I go under plot menu, under contour, a simple option is an image plot. That's just a raster plot of the image, okay. Sorry, choose that again, plot, contour, image plot, okay. So now it's inside a graph. That's a matrix window. This is a graph, okay. Note that when you make an image plot, the 0, 0 is on top left, just like how the image was, okay. If you choose to take the image and plot it as a contour, I wouldn't recommend it because contour sort of distorts the image, but sometimes you may want to see contour lines for values and such. Just note that the 0, 0 is over the bottom left. That's just our convention. You can, of course, for contour plots, you can, of course, flip the axis. Okay. Much more interesting than image plots and contour plots is a profile plot. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the matrix window and I'm going to go to the plot menu, and under contour, this time I'm going to choose profile. We have contour profile, we have image profile. Let me choose image profile. Okay. So now what happens is Origin comes up with this nifty tool which lets you do profiling of your image. Okay. This just happens to be a raster image. So it's just using the raster grayscale values for the profiling. So this tool is pretty nifty. It can do a bunch of things. Let me show you. So over here, if I expand this button, I can see the tabs for my vertical line and my horizontal line. I have 2 lines already placed. I can move them around. You can see the projections. Okay, Origin is sampling the pixels along that line. I can come here and say, choose this width of that to be scale, and As you know, I have about 5 microns here. Maybe I want 0.15 micron width. So now you see it's wider. So then I can move it and place it over this bar. Okay, then I get my profile. And you can go here and say, what do you want in your profile? Do you want mean? Do you want max? You can choose different options. Okay, let me go back to mean. And I can even come back here and add another vertical line. I can have as many vertical lines as I want. And the new vertical line just took the same width as what my previous vertical line was, which is very convenient. So I can go here and choose one more V line, for example, and place it on these 3 bars here, okay, to get the profile along those vertical slices and compare the data. And of course, then you can take this data, do peak fitting, whatever, depending on what's the relevance of your data. Okay, same thing you can do with the horizontal as well. You can go to the horizontal and set it by scale, by pixel. So for example, if I set by pixels, if I say 20 pixels, then it's going to be 20 pixels wide. Okay. Hope this is a very useful tool for you. You should play it with your data, and we would love to get feedback. Okay. Now, image operations. I'm close to an hour here. I'll keep going. If some of you decide to leave, you can always come back and look at the recording. I'll try to speed up a little here. So here I have 2 images. I have cell and a background, and I just wanted to show you when the matrix is in image mode, there are many menus here, adjustments like brightness, contrast, gamma, hue, invert. Maybe these are useful. I would guess that if you're doing microscopy or SEM or anything, you would probably adjust things outside of Origin, but these are available. You saw the conversion earlier. There are some geometric transforms. I'm going to go to geometric transform and choose offset just to show you an example. And I'm going to open the dialog. Okay, so here, the idea is, let me see, did I choose the wrong thing? Let me see my notes. Geometric transform offset. Okay. Image, geometric transform offset. Open dialog. Input image, reference image. So I have 2 images here. Okay, so let me go select them. My input images say I can click here and browse, and I can choose my input image as a background. Okay, and my reference image is the actual cell image. I choose that. Okay, my cell, and click OK. And you'll see here that they have these markings, this little T here, and that's not aligned. So this is a nifty tool where I can use a slider to move things around to try align it. Okay, you can do it more precisely by typing values in there. Okay, I just wanted to quickly show that. Then I can go to my vertical offset and align that as well. So my images are aligned. Okay, I'll just call that aligned. I'm not going to spend time tweaking it too much. Okay. And click OK, then I'll get a new image that's the background that's aligned to the original. Then I can do things like subtraction, take this image and subtract from there. There are options for that. Due to lack of time, I'm not going to show it, but you can see under arithmetic transforms, there is simple math. Okay, you can use that to subtract image 1 from image 2, multiply image 1 with image 2, whatever math operations you want to do. Okay. Let's see, somebody said missed that last time. Okay, what was it about? Okay, arbitrary line with any shape. Okay, somebody was asking about profiling. We do have a polyline profile tool available on as an app, which lets you draw arbitrary line shapes on your image to profile along that line. Okay, you may want to try that out. Okay. Moving on, I want to end with showing a couple of cool apps. One is object identification and counting, and the other is gel analysis. Okay, so let's quickly do that. I'm going to first show you object counting. We introduced this app a little while back. I already have it installed. By the way, let me just drag this app window here and expand it and show you. And when you go back and review the video, you could stop here to see which apps have I installed. Set image scale, polyline profiles, image object counter, gel molecular weight analyzer, smiles to image, Google Map import. Then you can go get those to follow along. Obviously, your Origin will not have these apps unless you have installed them. Okay, just wanted to point that out. Okay, let me dock that back here, and I'm going to fire up the image object counter, and here's my app. First thing I need to do is load an image. Okay, I go here, choose an image. Okay, let me navigate to my folder, desktop, go to webinars, today's webinar, and there's my red blood cells. Okay, I'm going to bring in that image. Okay, click open. The image opens in here. Okay, this window has a couple of buttons here. You can click the plus button to zoom and then pan around. You can click the minus button to zoom out. You can click this button to get it back to the normal. Okay, here, this app itself lets you set scales. Okay, so let me quickly do that. These are red blood cells. I don't have a marking in this image, so I'm just going to roughly gauge it. A red blood cell is typically about 8 microns. Okay, so I'm going to go here. Just focus on this cell here, roughly place it here, just to show you that you can do scaling right here in this app. Then everything you do in terms of object measurement will be based on that scale. So I can go here and say that's 8 microns. Okay, click OK. And then you'll see it's saying current unit in microns per pixel scale. Pixel per micron is 11 pixels. So 11 pixel is 1 micron. Okay. So here on this left, I have the procedure on how to analyze this data. First one is source. Some things are already loaded. Next thing is grayscale. Origin automatically wants you to convert it to grayscale to be able to work with the numbers, not RGB values, right? So now I can go and add more steps. So I can go here and say insert. And there are many things here: threshold, canny edge, morphology, watershed separation, filtering, blah, blah. I'm going to do thresholding first because I want to just convert it to just black and white. And in this particular image, I want to do a reverse thresholding. So I will do binary inverted. Okay. So now I have my blobs more or less more clear for the algorithms than to be able to find objects. Obviously, many are overlapping here. My objective is to find a few good cells, catch as many and do statistics on those to see what's the rough area, diameter, etc. Okay, so now I can insert a filter objects by area. Okay, if you do that, it's showing me the total area of the image. It's about 2000 micrometers. So I can go here and choose a between, and then I can start putting in values here. How about 500? Okay, if I go up to 500, what do I see? I'm getting many of those blobs. If I go up to 700, what do I see? Okay, I'm getting more. I can go here and say any little things, I don't want them in there. So let's put in a threshold of 300 for below. So it'll remove maybe spurious little dots and objects like that. Then I'm going to go here and say filter by circularity. I don't want blobs that are not very circular. So I can go in here and say, I want it to be as circular as possible. Then of course, everything went away. I can go here and say, how about 7? I got some back. How about 6? Okay, the circularity, I got some back. Maybe this one is oblong. I don't want that. I can tweak. So once you do settings like this, you can also save it. Okay, just wanted to make you aware that you can go here and say save the settings to a file and then load it back. Okay, you can play with that. Now that I have a bunch of cells that I have isolated, I can go to count objects. So now it's looking at all the objects and numbering them, the ones that pass the filters. Now it's nicely showing it on top of my original image. So I get the context of which ones I identified, which ones did not. So I can go here, change my color, for example, of the line, or I can change the thickness. I want it to be thicker. So I can now clearly see my boundaries, right? This one is a bad guy. It just happened to have something in there, and the algorithm ended up kind of getting a crescent instead of a circle. But anyways, I'll let it slide. I just wanted to show you all the options. You can go to output quantities and decide what you want, eccentricity, bounding rectangle, blah, blah. Then you can create an output result, okay? And an output image. So I can go here and click output my results, okay? And then close, okay? If I do that, then I get this nice image window here. This is a unique window that only some apps use. It's not a metrics window. It's somewhat of a hidden image window. You can see here everything marked. And here's my report of all of the objects that I identified, the index of the object, what's the centroid, X centroid, Y, what's the area. You can see the distribution in the area. It happened to catch something that was small. Maybe my filtering wasn't very good. Here's a circularity histogram and such. Okay, some of them failed. Maybe the failed ones is the one that, for some reason, it picked up 1920. I don't know why, and it failed on those. Okay, or maybe those were the, I don't know which ones 19 and 20 were. But anyways, you could could play with your images, and please try this app and let us know. Okay. To end with, let me show you another app. And the reason I'm showing this is I wanted to emphasize that we can make general apps such as object detection, but we can also do specific apps that are field specific. So somebody, a customer from Australia, was pushing us to create an app for gel molecular weight analyzer. So the idea here is they have a gel, and there are 2 tracks here. This is a known sample, so they know all the molecular weights of the bands here, and they have an unknown here. So how to analyze this? So let me quickly show that. Okay. So I have already installed the Gel Analyzer app. Let me close this QA window here. I'll position this a little bit to the side so I can look at it later. Okay. So let me fire up the Gel Analyzer. And for the Gel Analyzer, the app happens to be a little larger. So let me go to my desktop, and I'm going to bump up the resolution, okay, so I can really see the large app window. So I'm going to go to display settings here. I'm just going to bump it up a bit, okay. I'm going to go to, say, 1600 by 900, okay. Keep the changes, okay. It's not the optimal resolution, fine. Go back to origin. And then I click General Analyzer, and then it's asking for an image. I already have the image. We will share this image with you. It's part of the app anyway. User gave us permission to share this. So here's my app, okay? Now, first thing to do is to define a lane for the known sample, okay? So I did that here, okay? Then Origin takes that data and shows the cross section, okay? So I can see all the peaks. I can detect the bands. There are settings here for adjusting. I can change it to, say, 20 by 20 windowing and try to see if it catches more. It caught some more. But there's a little band here that I'm interested in that is part of the calibration that it did not catch. I can go here and zoom in. That's a shoulder there. I can add a band myself where I want to, where I know the band ought to exist. Okay, I can zoom out, and Origin has a collection here with the table. Okay, then I can start entering my known molecular weights. I can look here for the values. First one is 500, then 290, then 240. Okay, 160, 116, 97, 66, 55, and 40. And as you know, if you do gel analysis, the last one is a reference or something, so that's not taken as data. I'm not familiar with this field, but the user explained to me that that value is not used in fitting. So then I can go here and fit a standard curve. I can try linear, I can try polynomial, I can try exponential decay, different options. Let me just stick with this just to show you. Then I can click next. So the calibration has been done. Then now I can go add a lane for my unknown gel here. Then do the same thing, do the detect bands add bands where they may be missing that I want to add, etc. And once I'm done with that, I can come here and say calculate molecular weight. And those are the molecular weights for the bands in the unknown sample in the gel. Okay, isn't that cool? That's a nice app. This even has an HTML report, and you can output the results and it creates a nice report. Let me show you the HTML report. So I showed you an HTML Markdown option earlier on. So we use that to make a nice report here. So here is my HTML report. Here's my sample, nicely annotated, channel lane 1, lane 2, which were all the bands that we identified. Here is the spectra from the lane 1, from lane 2. Here are the data points and the molecular weights of the known lane 1. Here is lane 1 fit. Here is a fit graph. And here is the interpolated or the interpreted values of the unknown lane. Okay. At this point, let me ask my colleague to do polling. Okay. We really appreciate your feedback. Please take a few moments to give feedback. Okay, I think I will stop the webinar. Thank you for your participation and have a good afternoon. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you.